Golf is designed for you to fail, right? If it was meant for you to success, there'd be no such thing as bunkers. Fairways would be 500 yards wide and dead straight. Holes would be the size of basketball nets or something. It's like there's a reason why golf course architects, the most evil people in the world, figure out how far people hit their driver and then put fairway bunkers there. There's a reason why they do that and stuff. And so it's, if you can understand failure management, that's what success is in the game. It's hitting a shot, accepting the results, and just, all right, what do I do on the next one? What do I do on the next one? And go from there. And I mean, I think every coach, we all have those good juniors. And I'm sure every coach can think about those handful of juniors that, man, how good could she or he have been if only they could have accepted that they're human, that they're imperfect.
We are live. I am here with James Hong, better known in the coaching circles as the Honger. Matt, exceptional coach, exceptional junior program. I have heard exceptional impressionists that maybe we'll get into a little later in the show. And that was one of the conversations last night at the dinner. I said, "Hey, everyone, give me a question. I got to ask James tomorrow because he's coming on." And Jason said, "You got to ask him about his impressions." And
guy's a troublemaker.
He's an instigator, isn't he? But you are the director of instruction, I believe, at Harbor Links up in Long Island, up in New York. But pleasure to have you on. It's my fault. We met, I believe it was 3 years ago, when Jason and Krista put on our Carolinas section teaching seminar, and I mentioned to you about coming on. And I can't even say that 3 years have gone by and just things came up, because a lot of things can come up in 3 years, but it was my fault for not having you on sooner. So I apologize to you and all the listeners who said, "When's James coming on?" So I hope this is the first of many visits you'll make. And because we got a lot to talk about, we almost blew through a whole bunch of it in the pre-show, but
my pleasure.
As we discussed in the pre-show, I was listening to your episode with Jason, the Golf Guru show. So I highly recommend. Here's a plug for Jason's show. You were on there. And as I always contemplate how to get started on an episode, but your episode with Jason really, for me, did a shining of a light on your career, or what you were doing prior to coaching, which was fencing. And I, if you don't mind, I'd like you to tell that story, because I think it is a segue into what you can take from other sports, what you can learn from multiple different ideas on coaching, the differences between, let's say, cultures in coaching between, let's say, the U.S. and outside the U.S., which you got to experience and you still do, and then how using all those different things has helped you develop the great program that you have.
Yeah, certainly. When I was younger, back in high school, I started taking up fencing, and the high school that I was at the time, they were known for having this powerhouse program. And of course, and it's still today the case, where a lot of people think, oh, if you're a high level player at fencing, the Ivy Leagues, for instance, or those kind of high education institutions are very big on that. So fencing was something I started taking up, and I just got absolutely obsessive about it. And what for me happened was that my parents couldn't afford lessons all the time. So I basically had no choice but to be very observant and watch things, and not only watch things, but ask a lot of questions of the other competitors, of the coaches. And again, the coaches really appreciated, here's this inquisitive kid, and they'd be like, "Hey, you know what? I'll give you 10 minutes at the end of the day. If you're still around, I can work with you a little bit," and stuff like that. So that was always helpful for me. And it's also, it trained my eyes to watch, train my eyes, train my mind to think, basically be a problem solver. Why did this person do it this way? Why did that person do it that way? But getting back to fencing, it was just one of those things. I became obsessive with it, and just grew. And but I got to a point where I was pretty competitive in college, but I basically flatlined. And I was probably about 5 minutes away from saying, you know what, I think, why am I killing myself, and I keep doing this, and like, I'm not really seeing I'm not getting any better than I am now. So I might just stop. And where I was going to school, they hired a new coach, and I'd heard great things about this guy. He was a little weird and stuff, and I don't mean weird in a bad way, just he was different. So I said, "Well, let me give him a shot. Let me see what he says, and if it's still the same, then I'll give it up." And I went, and sure enough, here's this guy, Vasil Etropolsky. He's from Bulgaria, and he was very different. He basically had, he came from the Eastern Bloc countries, so a lot of things that he was bringing over were things that were not at that time noted for in the Western side. And so, and the Berlin Wall had already come down, so it's not like these were secrets or
Hmm.
something like that. It's like he would come, and that was another source of conversation. It's like, so what did you do when you were training? What was happening in this case? And I found out a lot of things about what the Eastern Bloc countries were doing in terms of athletic training, not just in fencing, but in other sports. And it's kind of funny now, we know with propaganda and all this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we heard you Americans thought that about this and this. It's like, that never like that. Yeah, it's like, I don't know where that came from, but whatever. And then, but there were also other things that they said, yeah, we thought so and so was like this in America or in whatever on the Western side, and it turns out that was a bunch of propaganda and stuff. So it was kind of interesting to hear what was real and what wasn't.
Mm.
But the the thing
Oh,
about
so
fencing
so wait
that's
wait a minute.
yeah, go
So
ahead.
it's like the media and powers to be. This isn't a new thing where they're trying to push propaganda that we see
Yeah.
on the news. This has been going on for a long time in every facet of sport and life and everything, and politics and everything else. So not
Oh,
to I
you got it.
didn't
Yep.
mean to interrupt, but I had to just get that in there.
Well, I was thinking exactly the same thing. But but for sure. And the thing about fencing is it's very, very, the coaching style, for lack of a better way of describing it, is very dictatorial. And it's the European version of martial arts.
Hmm.
You do this, and you don't move on to the next step until you're good at this. You're proficient in this. So a lot of what we learned in our first year was simply how to hold the weapon. How do you hold it correctly? No, the pommel, the butt end of the weapon, of the handle, can't be over here. It's got to be over there. Nope, you moved it 1 inch. Nope, nope, you did it wrong. No, the wrist has got to be there. Forearm's got to be this way. All this kind of stuff. Your footwork had to be perfect. You had to be able to move basically in perfect timing, perfect tempo, and your form had to be perfect at all times. And it's like, after a while, you're kind of like, why are we doing this? This is so boring. Why are we doing this? And then finally, one of the coaches that I had was telling me that because they know that the instant the gun goes off, the instant you start competing, you lose a minimum of 40% of your form. And so the more perfect, the better your form is when you can control it, that 40% maybe only becomes 30% or 20%. Let the other
Mm,
person be sloppy while you're, or let the other person be more sloppy than you in competition,
very
so to
interesting.
speak. So that kind of clicked with me. So I was very obsessive with making sure my footwork was correct. And then you would move on into, how does the blade work? How does your body work? How does your body move to control the blade, and vice versa? Gee, does this all sound familiar? But and so that was what was going on. And then, of course, sure enough, you would spar with someone, and then that's when you'd be like, oh my god, this is way different. It's whoa, why isn't this person doing what the coach said that we're supposed to be doing? Why is everything like this now? And it's like, so you had to adapt to the reality of the competition versus the controlled environment. And so each level, instead of thinking of it as like you would get a yellow belt, a green belt, a red belt, etc., it was like, okay, I'm moving up, I'm moving up. And how you knew you were moving up was the pool of practice partners that you had. It's, if the players were getting better, that means you were getting better, you were getting accepted. And I think for me, it was really good to go to practice at the New York Athletic Club or the New York Fencers Club, and I'd walk in and they'd be like, "Hey, what's going on?" Immediately, the top level, "Hey, what's going on? Hey, listen, we're we're going to be practicing at 9 o'clock. You still going to be around?" "Yeah, I'll be around." "Okay." I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah,
okay, great. They
get
want me there."
yeah,
And
get to play with the big boys.
yeah, and it just kept going and going, and so it became very. And again, like going back to the coach, he really sparked me in that a lot of what he said was similar. The things that he said that were similar to other coaches, but it was the way he communicated it and the way he said it that just seemed to connect with me. But he also brought up other things where he would say, Yeah, part of what made him successful was that he was a little different from the others. And so he would show me what he would do. And I think what I liked about what he was doing was he was also seeing what I was good at and saying, this is where you can take advantage of your opponent. And let's do this. And and again, he was very sassy. He was very sarcastic. So he would say like, James, you're not very good at many things, but you are good at one or two. So let's work on that, right? And
Very direct.
yeah. And then sometimes we would be practicing, or he would see me at a competition, and then you could hear him in the corner. Yeah, James, that sucked. Don't do that anymore. And it's like it. And so I think that kind of grew on me, and I appreciated the, if you want to call it negative, it wasn't negativity, it was criticism, it was critiquing. It's like, how are you going to get better unless you know?
Mhm.
And so we became very good friends and close. We actually, our birthdays are the same day. So, and his style of coaching, it really influenced me in terms of golf. And so that transition, and I coached two college teams, so I had that coaching experience in my background as I slowly moved towards golf. And one thing I'll say about the fencing way of coaching, it's very similar to golf instruction. The lessons very similar, one on one. Yes, there are groups as well, and how they run the groups. It is. If you walked into a fencing school and watched them in about 10-15 minutes, you'd be like, "Oh my god, this is like a golf school." And so I just basically copied a lot of what they were doing in these academies and brought it in. And just coincidentally, I'd seen Dr. Rick Jensen and Henry Brunton in one of their seminars, and he was talking about the dance school model and how he was watching his daughter's year-end recital, and then you'd see the year one dancers come out and they're doing their thing, and then the year two, year three, the ballet dancers, the modern dancers, that they would all perform. And then at the end of the evening, they would all come out, and you would just see, here they are, here's the next class, here's the next class. And there'd be this huge group on the stage at the end. And he was just kind of thinking of it as, why can't we do that in golf as well? And that's exactly the same thing I was thinking in terms of the fencing academy into a golf school, or just a junior program.
Yeah, it seems like it would keep the develop some cohesiveness between kids or adults or whoever it is, even though there's a wide disparity and differences in skill level. They are, if they're all there for the common purpose of improving, and if they're segmented by their development level or skill level, but they're also brought in as a group together. I would have to imagine it makes the experience of them learning more enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I noticed, and I didn't know about this, and then I asked Vasil about it. He told me it's, they have the higher level players come in and not only coach the younger kids or coach the lower level players, but they have them referee the inter-practice matches. And so what'll happen is during the sparring, the bouts, the coach would, or the player would be the referee, and would, like, whatever, there's an action, light goes off. Okay. And the referee's job is to describe what happened and then award a point.
Mm.
And so nowadays it's different, but back in the day, there's no such thing as instant replay. It was basically what my eyes saw, and I'm the judge, and that's why there was always arguing on it. No, that's not. Blah, blah, blah. And so if you ever look up YouTube videos of fencing, you'll see after every point that the two competitors are like, they're trying to convince the referee that they won the point, and the referee describes it. No, but going back to what I was saying earlier, it's like, I think that's what trained my eyes to see things, because things are moving this fast.
Mhm.
And so, but they would come in and they would describe what was going on, and at the same time they were coaching as they were refereeing, and telling the players, this is what you do. But then also what would happen to train the players is that if we were all like in a practice group, so let's say we had 4 or 5 of us, and you're the one on the fencing strip, so you would won, so I'm going to practice against you next. We would go to 3 points, and then if I won that one, I would stay on, you would come off, and the next person would rotate in. And what would happen is the person that's on deck is the referee for our match. So everybody was learning, everybody was rotating around
It's
and
very
seeing things.
interesting.
And so what would happen is, like I said, the person on deck would call a point, and if you disagreed with what that person called, you would say, well, what about this? What about this? That was teaching that person maybe Pete was right, or maybe this person saying to you, no, I saw it this way. No, we all know each other, so you might be walking back going, well, then you're freaking blind.
Hmm.
But that's part of it, and no hard feelings. So that all of that system, that training, really kind of I was always taking bits and pieces of that. It's like having the kids coach each other, having having them say like, hey, what did you see this person do? What did you see? Pete's going to hit a ball there. How would you tell him to get better? Right? And I would do that with 6-year-old kids too.
Yeah, it gives them a completely different perspective, but it's also having them develop motion recognition. And
Yes.
I remember I had that. I would sit at I'm not gonna. I guess I'm tooting my own horn, but not that I'm trying to, but I would sit there because I still don't have any technology. If I need TrackMan, I'll call my brother who's the Cobra. He works for Cobra and he's got one. I'll call Jason or Stokey or Tim Cook or Krista and say, hey, can I come over with a student, get on your TrackMan or Force, whatever it is, just because they're either good or we can't figure something out. And I know it's minute, but I never had any of that. And I guess in a similar fashion to you, when I would watch golf, I would just watch swing after swing after swing and start to develop, okay, why'd they do this? Why'd they do this? Why'd they do this? And then it became be watching golf and someone hit a shot and I'll say, oh God, he blocked it right. And the announcer 3 seconds later, oh man, he's way right on that one. So I did this over and over for a long time. And my girlfriend said, how do you know this? Like you can just see they're swinging, you know what? I'm like, it's motion recognition.
Yeah.
And what really kind of put it into perspective, like I thought I was some weirdo that like, am I really seeing this or can I really do this? Or is this some kind of, am I full of shit? And I don't know, it was about 15, 20 years ago. Sports Illustrated had a big expose on are home run hitters made or are they born? And what they found out was, and I think this was pre David Epstein's range in the sports gene. And I think what they found out was motion recognition, and they went into martial arts. As you said, fencing was the martial arts of the Eastern Bloc. I did martial arts for a number of years until my body couldn't do it anymore. But I saw martial arts and golf, and fencing, that if a person moves a certain way, then you can eliminate a whole laundry list of things that they can't do. And now you have a shorter list of things that they can do. And then they move another way. And that now this list becomes smaller so that you're starting to look in a very, very small window for what's happening. And then you can backtrack it to
Yeah.
figure out what's going on. So you
And
get a completely different perspective on your coaching, your skill as far as
yeah,
recognition.
ex- exactly. And I think as I was talking about with Vasil would talk to me about, and so would the other coaches. I mentioned the footwork and the hand work, the blade work.
Hmm.
Today, we'd be talking about ulnar deviation, pronation, super, all of this stuff in terms of golf, as well as going back to fencing. And so we talked a lot about that. But the thing that was also interesting about fencing was because we were focusing on footwork, one of the things that I'd heard from Vasil, and he would bring in a couple of Russian coaches every now and then to help out, is they would talk about how the feet were moving. And well, we would always see you Americans would be like this with your feet, and we knew you were half a second slower as a result. Da, 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 da,
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. So, guess what we were talking about back then? Ground reaction forces. And so that just seemed to click with me as a young guy. It's like, all right, and it carries over into my coaching in that, yeah, I'm always watching what are they doing with their feet, what are they doing with their body, what are they doing with their hands, how is it kind of like chain reacting through the system, and also vice versa, because the coaches would also talk about. Now, this is, of course, it's different in that you have a competitor in front of you, and you probably know this from martial arts as well. In terms of the blade, how does the blade affect how you're moving? Right, the other way around. Like if you wanted to do something with the blade, that would transfer into you moving a certain way. Likewise, you could feint someone into thinking you're doing
Yeah,
something and you're actually doing something else.
always the fake. I learned very quickly it's
Yep.
deception is the key in that
Right.
field.
And so it's like I would joke around with a friend of mine. I say, so in this particular case, the transfer is we're trying to fake out the ball. It's like, yeah, I'm going to make you think I'm going to hit a bad shot, but I'm really not. And but it's how the club, what you're feeling the club. is going to translate into how your body moves and vice versa. And so, uh, on an off topic for a second, I know, I was listening to your podcast with Dennis Sales,
Mhm.
and he brings up a great point. It's like it's not that he thinks that it's bad. He just thinks we overreact to it. We put too much emphasis on it, and I think he's got a good point. I mean, and that's talking from someone who is a coach who really does like watching that stuff, and because I've done stuff with students. Hey, let's try and get you to push this way. Let's try and get you to move your feet. Nothing happens. Nothing different. Sometimes it gets worse. All right. Well, that's not going to be it. So, um, yeah. But I think getting back to what I was saying, that just that's just the way I am.
Mhm.
Because when I was fencing, that's what we worked on. Is how do I get my feet to move so that I can do this easier with the blade, and how do I get the blade to move a certain way to get a point or to deceive the opponent? Then that's going to make me move a certain way, right? So it's is it the chicken or the egg? And that was one of the fascinating things that carried over. And so, um, one of the weird things I would do sometimes with students is actually take 10 minutes and give them a fencing lesson and just say, hey, this is how you do footwork in fencing, real quick lesson. And it's especially cool when one of the kids goes like, oh, I fence in school too. I take fencing lessons on the weekend. Oh, really? Okay. And then we do stuff, and it's like, okay. And so they can, I tell them, what did you feel like the ball of your feet was doing? What did you feel like? Well, what did your coach tell you, you were supposed to do when this happens and stuff? And yeah, very similar in golf. It's like, can you move this way? Can you move that way?
I was doing the karate, I did karate, judo, jujitsu. But when we were doing the karate, the teacher had won the Far Eastern Japanese Championship. So he was like the adopted son of the guy from Japan whose family was one of the original. Was it 5 or 7 karate? Part in Okinawa, part in Japan, and the lineage went back hundreds of years. So he learned from the master basically. But he would make us do kendo. He said, okay, we're at least once a week. We did Monday, Wednesday, Friday training, but once a week after you got a little bit of knowledge, he would make us do kendo. So it was very foreign to me because I was coming off of my playing, trying to chase the tour. So it was very foreign to hold an object, split hand grip, and now it's short, and all these other things as you're describing, and learning the subtle movements of how something else moves in relationship to what I'm used to moving it, swinging 1,000 times a day or 500 balls a day or whatever I was, and just uh, the mental process and the changing that I had to go through. But the adaptation was relatively quick in relationship to all the other students that had not done anything. I understood that, okay, if I move one way, it affects out at the tip or the object that I'm holding. And other students had not had that experience in any. Now, I had had it at a very high level, so it helped a lot. So I adapted much quicker. I just hated, if you weren't doing what you're supposed to, the teacher would say, "Okay, we're gonna face off." And he was so good that he would hit you purposely, like between where your glove stopped and all your padding was. He'd whack you across the forearm, or he'd whack you, wherever you didn't have padding, just to prove a point. Like, get your shit
Yeah,
together.
they're
It
all
was
the
like,
same.
and one thing, the reason I bring that up, that you really sparked my memory on that, is when you said some of the guys that you faced that, and you're everybody. James was world class, like Olympic, almost made the Olympic team if I'm not mistaken, or was very
Oh, no,
close
no,
to.
no, not that high.
No, not,
I that was my goal. That was my dream.
okay,
But
but
yeah, but
it's
I
still elite.
competed in a couple of World Cups. Yeah,
Yes, elite level. But when you said that you faced off against the one guy and lost 15-11, and everyone said, Mike, you got 11 points against him. I think he was
yeah,
he was a gold medalist or was a world champion or
yeah.
something like that.
He was like one of the top 10 in the world. Yeah,
But when you said you don't even remember him getting to you, I can distinctly remember that pulled up in my memory bank, a class where we were sparring, and I had to go against a teacher, and I made the stupid mistake because he was taking it so easy because I was a white or yellow belt, and I got a hand on him, and hey, everybody, I got a hand on Sensei, and he said, okay, we're not going to rotate anymore. And for the next 20 minutes, he beat the living hell out of me. But to your point, when he would hit me, I would go to make a move, and next thing I knew, I would feel his hand hit me in the ribs, and he'd be behind me in the blink of an eye, and I could not believe how fast he
yeah.
was. It was amazing.
And it's funny. It's like the more I tell that story, the more things flood back. But then again, I don't know if that really happened or if it's just my brain trying to like creating an urban legend. It's is I just exactly what you said, where I was like Vasile at the end of the night. I was like, hey, you know what? Let me give you a 15-minute lesson. He'd give me a lesson. He goes like, all right, 3 points, you and me. And then we would fence. And I remember every now and then he would be like, if nothing works, just go crazy. Just make it feel opposite. Make it feel horrible. Just do something weird. And I remember same thing. He got two really quick, easy ones. And I was like, all right, this is going to be a fast night. I don't want it to be a fast night. I want to go a little bit more. So I remember thinking, go crazy. And to me, it felt like I was going like this. And then all of a sudden I hear him go, oh, that's a good one. And I got him. I don't know what, I don't know. I felt like an octopus. It was like, I got him. Really? Okay. And then he goes, ready, fence. And I did it again. And he goes, oh, wow, you're finally learning. And then, of course, like, oh, I'm getting really cocky. Ready, fence, boom, he hits me. It's over. Let's go take a shower. But I remember against that guy, the exact same thing where I was just like, go crazy, just go crazy, right? The great thing about that moment was the fact that I was one of a handful of Americans that made it through to that final 64 or whatever it was. And I think most of the guys that were on the national team hadn't made it, and yet I had. And so now I'm against this guy. And so I was like, there isn't much more you can do. Just go crazy. I remember everyone was like this, and like, but and then all of a sudden I'd see the green or whatever it was, the light go off, and then the referee would be like, point to me for the point. I'm like, really? Okay. Right. But it was at the same time, it's like the other guy would be like, okay, all right. And it was just simply ready, fence. And it's like, where did he go? And it's like, oh, wait a minute, he's behind me.
In
But
in retrospect, when you think back and you absorb that and you kind of give it some deep thought on what you did and what you learned, my assumption just from playing golf and doing martial arts, and I didn't get to any high level. I think I did it for 5 years before the body's like, you can't be doing this.
yeah,
Because I was already beat up physically from playing golf by that point. But when you look back on that, and do you have a better understanding, of course, of why you had to do the monotonous, this is boring, exactly position way? Because when you did go crazy, that something in you deep down, the non-conscious, was taking over those little movements and doing it what it needed to, while the rest of you might have felt helter skelter. But when you look back, did you recognize that, the importance of that, and then use that in your own teaching, whether it was in fencing or as you transferred into golf with students? And then did you have any comprehension of what, or take anything from what you called crazy, to look back on it in your own brain in slow motion, say, this actually wasn't as crazy now that I have a chance to look at what I was doing. And it was actually not a bad thing, because you obviously scored 11 points on a guy that was one of the best in the world.
yeah, 100%. I think you said it beautifully there. I look back on that and realize that uh, all of that monotonous training was building a habit, building a skill, however you want to put it, to the point where I could do something without even thinking about it. It was just, I mean, even making hand gestures, it's, hey, you know what? 10 years ago, or like if I do something like that, like, hey, 20 years ago, I would have gotten a flick on somebody's shoulder just by doing something or whatever. Right. Or I get a flashback in a moment of me doing something. Oh, no. It's not supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be that way, whatever it is. But yes, I think that what what I realized is the craziness that I felt wasn't actually craziness. It was me breaking out of that comfort level. And so the craziness was the equivalent of me thinking that's wrong, that's bad, that's weird, that's unusual. In reality, what it was just different. But it was exactly what was needed in terms of me going against whoever it was I was going against, because they had recognized my pattern already and were using it against me. So I have to do something that's different. And so I think if we carry that over into golf, the golf course is the opponent. So really what you're looking at is, if you keep hitting the shot a certain way and it's unsuccessful or it's not a good shot, it's just by default, do something different. Just, for shits and giggles. Just do something different. Just see what happens. Uh, a quick example would be if someone's slicing the ball, I would just ask him, "Do you know what does it feel like to hook a ball?" "Oh, it feels like this." "All right. What do you think of that?" "Yeah, it just feels weird. It feels whatever." "So, well, can you take these 5 balls and just try to hook all of them?" And somewhere along the way, sometimes it's the first ball or the second ball, all of a sudden the ball just goes way straighter. It's not necessarily a good shot, it just goes straighter just because I've gotten them to just decide to do something different than what their ingrained pattern is in that moment. And a lot of times when I'm doing that, I get a flashback to those 2 moments when I was fencing.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what we were talking about in the pre-show, and if we have time, we'll get into it. That the going well beyond someone's comfort level, even if it's in golf. So going beyond just hitting balls for half an hour and doing this, it might be monotonous. It might be considered block training, and there's been enough discussion about that, and that's a separate topic we can get into versus variable and all those other things. But having someone hitting shots and then say, okay, you're getting a little fatigued, let's take time off. No, at some point they're going to be, we need to break through this. And for the immediate time that they break through it, it's going to be crazy as you describe it. But pretty soon, as they go beyond that and they get into the abyss, so long as their focus and their intent is on something and they have some fundamentals that the coach implemented with them and they can hold the course, that abyss and that out in the middle of the universe is not going to be as scary if they have some focus on what they're doing and they stay committed to that. And then it goes to a whole new level as you did. You don't even know how you did it. But it was that breaking through of your comfort level or what you had become used to. And as you said, that opponent recognized those motion patterns and it's like, well, shit, now I got to do something. Can't keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, and I think the commentary of um, you have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
It's like to me that is the norm. It's if it's not working, why do you keep doing it? Right? The definition of insanity. And so I remember I went and saw this high level instructor just to visit him for the day, and he said, "Oh, you want a lesson?" I was like, "Sure, okay." So we were doing some stuff, and it's not like I qualified for 15 U.S. Opens. It's just like just some help with my swing and stuff, and I think 2/3 of the way into the lesson, he looks at me, he goes, "You are really, really adaptable. You're like one of the easiest people I've ever worked with." It's like, and he turned it around. He goes like, "It's exactly what we're talking about." I was like, I've, "Why are you so easily embracing things? What is it? What is it you're telling yourself?" And it's exactly that. It's like it's got to feel different. It's like I want it to. Why would I want it to feel the same? If I wanted the same, I wouldn't ask for the lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It's uh, it's just it's got to feel different. It's got to feel weird. And like the thing that he pointed out is whatever he was telling me to do, he'd be like, "Yeah, that's pretty good. Wow, you got it right away. I thought it was going to take you a while." And it was like, "No." And then I would even say to him, "Can I do it even more? Should I try to do it even more? Should I do it? Should I make it really, really?" And he'd be like, "Well, yeah, yeah. Let's see how far you can go." And he said that was one of the few times where instead of him saying try to do it more, that it was the student saying, can I do it even more than that? Can I make it even weirder? Can I make it even more uncomfortable? Right. And I remember his comment was, as long as you don't hurt yourself, you're good. And that was just something that I got from those days in fencing. And I try to carry that over into students. And I think with golf, because we judge ourselves on the result so much that we label ourselves. And so just getting that point across to people, and it's hard. It's in this conversation, we're making it sound like it's real easy. Oh, just do this and you'll be fine,
Right.
right? But it's
It's
not.
miserable a
It's
lot of times.
miserable. Juniors are often thinking their parents are going to hate them just because they hit a bad shot and stuff, and it parents recognizing, hey, that frown on your face is the child's. You're telling the child, you let me down.
Mm-hmm.
But going back, it's like, yeah, I'm students are always kind of looking at me going like, really, you don't care? Meaning, when I ask them to do something, is I first thing I say to them is like, I don't care where the ball goes. I don't care if you miss it or top it. It's like the world's not going to end. And then of course what happens? They go, okay, no problem. They hit a shot, and immediately they go like, oh, why I hit a bad shot? And I go, are you still alive? Yeah. Did the hand of God come down and smite you down where you stood? No. Did the grounds open up and swallow you whole? No. All right, next ball. right? You did what I wanted. Good. Next ball. And so just constantly reinforcing that it's not that uncomfortable is great, but uncomfortable is you should accept it as a sign that you're learning, you're adapting, you're
Yeah, I
adjusting.
think it's a requirement. It's part of
Yeah.
the recipe that you're not going to get a great outcome, cake,
Yeah.
dinner, etc., without that part of the recipe. It's like leaving something out.
That's exact. I use the exact same analogy. I'll say this is you, especially with kids, like this is you eating the vegetables. This is you eating the liver. This is you eating that food that your parents said you got to finish your plate and you hate that stuff. All
Uh-huh.
right. Well, guess what? What's your favorite dessert? Here it comes. All right. That's coming. Whether that's somewhere down the road or like a lot of kids, can we hit driver now? Sure. Let's do a long drive contest. And it's like, woof, thank God. It's like, yeah, hey, listen, that 45 minutes, you worked really hard. You earned this. Here's your dessert. Let's go. Let's have some fun with this.
Yeah,
And
I would have to relate the 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 constant development or focus on fundamentals in your fencing, and I know that you do it in your junior schools. I've seen enough of your information. I've heard you talk enough, show examples, etc. But the development and the monotony of developing the simple fundamentals would be the equivalent of eating your vegetables and eating your chicken and liver and the healthy food so that you don't get sick. But
yep,
in the event that you do get sick, we have the medicine for your swing that I can help you fix it. Dr. Hong's going to come in and fix your swing. But if you don't do these things and get your vitamins, minerals, nutrients, etc., on a regular basis, meaning your fundamentals or if that's a word in golf anymore, I don't want to have anybody get ticked off and say, you don't know, that's the wrong. I think everyone knows what I'm saying. If you don't do these things that are important to your game, the basics, then you're going to continue to get sick, and I'm going to have to continue to come in, and you're not going to advance. You're not going to reach the levels that you stated that you wanted to get to when we first started.
yeah. I think I still use the word fundamentals or ABCs, but what I tell a lot of the kids, and I say the same thing to adults. It doesn't matter. It's that these are the basics. These are the fundamentals. And what's going to happen is, as you progress and you improve, you will actually create your own ABCs. And you will do your own thing. We talk about wedges all the time where it's like, oh, weight's got to be forward or left, weight's left, and everything and stuff. But then you pop up a video of Sevi talking about a flop shot, and he's like, well, put your weight on the right,
Hmm.
right? And that's his ABCs. And it's not right or wrong. That's part of what makes him great. Whether that makes you great, nobody knows until you try it, right? But if you're coming through the door for the first time and you're saying you're a beginner, what club should I buy? It's like, I'm going to have your weight on your left for wedges. And it's the same thing with the advanced juniors is I tell them it's you're moving towards creating your ABCs. And so the early lessons were always like, all right, step 1 is this, step 2, step 3, step 4. Now it's more of like, so what do you think works for you best? What did you find out works for you best? Well, you know how you told me to do this? Well, I noticed that when I did it a little bit more like that, like I hit the ball better. Okay. That's fine. That's
Good.
that's yours now.
That's you own it. That's what we're doing.
That's it. Yep.
As you work with kids, and it is a challenging process sometimes because, as you mentioned, they're so, especially I think up from a technical standpoint, up till the age of about 12, 13, the approval they're seeking is of their parents. And then once they get to about preteen to teenage, and they're seeking the approval of their friends. They don't care about what mom and dad say anymore. But the thing with junior golf that everybody always wants to know about, especially if someone's has their own started a junior program, they're assistant at a school that they're teaching or whatever field they're in, and they're working with kids, is the helicopter parents. So and the question would not be how do you handle helicopter parents, is what would your advice be after doing this for so long and having the successes? What do you tell parents and how they can be supportive yet not overbearing?
Yeah, I think early in my career, one of the things that I did was I was always the parents can come to the lesson area. You here, I'm going to work with your child, but you can't be there. You can't be there at all. And I realized that I'd been creating an adversarial approach, and and so One of the things I get across, I think, in that the uh, the seminar that we were both at a couple of years ago, the Mid Atlantic section, like I said it there, it's like when you're teaching juniors, it's a 2 for 1. It's you're not just teaching the student, you're also teaching the parents. And so I had done a basic 180 where instead of telling the parents you can't be here, I would say, "Do you want to stay?" And be like, "Oh, can I stay?" Or they would ask, "Is it all right if I stay?" And I'd tell them, "It's like you can stay, but remember, you're an observer, right?" And I said, "Don't worry, I'm not shutting you out. It's like, but I want to hear." And then a lot of times, I'll in the lesson, I'll be, "Are you trying to keep your head down?" "Yeah." "Well, who told you that?" And, "Well, Dad told me that." "Okay, okay." Now I'm not turning around and going like, "You stupid idiot! What are you doing?" Right? I'll be like, "Okay, let me tell you why you might not want to say that to him anymore or her anymore. It's I understand what you're trying to say. I think the better way of thinking about it is not keep your head down, but let's keep our eyes on the ball. And when you strike the ball and the ball's traveling out, your eyes are not still going to be there. You want to kind of follow the ball, watch the ball, enjoy the shot." And so that education of the parents, I think what you're doing is you're also sowing the seeds to let the parents know you are a resource for them. And not only as a resource, you, in a sense, in a perfect world, should be the main resource of information. And I think what happens is you see that resistance slowly start to drop because, oh, you know what, maybe this is a person I can ask some questions to. And you should be, you as the coach should be receptive to that. And so of course we get this all the time. It's like, yeah, I saw this video the other day. I saw this YouTube TikTok video, and I'll tell the parent, it's, yeah, that's probably not too good for her because of this and this, or that might work for her in 5 years from now, but not today because she's 8, um, and stuff.
She's
And
only 5.
yep. And likewise, I'll do the same thing where I'll see something and I'll forward that to the parent and the child. "Hey, remember what we were talking about the other day? This is a good thing for you to watch." Or I'll be forthright. I'll say, "Remember what I was talking about and it was a little confusing? I think this video says it better than what I said." Right? And so again, you're sowing the seeds to letting the parents know you are a resource. And um and that's important because we can sit here as coaches and complain all we want. "Oh my God, I'm so sick of all these people telling me they went to see some video, some video, some video." Well, then open yourself up to it. Open yourself up as I should be the resource. I
Mm.
and or I should be the person they could feel comfortable passing things by. Part of the reason why people don't do that, meaning the parents, is because somewhere they felt like they're not supposed to. It's like, don't do that. Oh, she's gonna be pissed if I just, so I better not say anything. Right. So no, no, that's fine. That's cool. I'm supposed to know about these things. So and again, going back to what we were talking about, that's what I think is important. And so the helicopter parents, by educating them, I don't mind them being helicopters as long as what's coming out of their mouth or their body language is appropriate. And so I want them realizing that, yes, like we were just saying a few minutes ago, it's when your child hits a bad shot and you roll your eyes or you're looking at them like this, it's that's basically you telling them that you are judging them for who they are, that they're letting you down. And so if you have the ability to say, like, "That's okay. I do that all the time. You've seen Dad do that all the time on the range." So, right? "Hey, it's nice to know you and I have got the same genes. Ha ha ha."
Mhm.
Right? So now when the child realizes that I'm not being judged, they then become more receptive to any critique that might be down the road. But especially at a young age, you have to develop this sense of problem solving. Like kids today, they just look for the app that solves the problem. And so if you can get the kids to develop that sense of, I got to figure this out, I'm fixing this, what did I have to do? What am I, how do I do it? That goes a long way. So instead of saying, boy, how could you do that? It was terrible. Do this instead. Now you're the app. And so instead going like, okay, where'd the ball go there? Well, what part of the club do you hit? Well, this happened, this happened. Okay. What do you think on this next ball here you can do to make it better? What do you think would happen? What do you think would help to make it better? I think I'm gonna get the club face a little bit more here. Okay. Take a couple of practice. Let's see. Does that feel like you got the club face what you said? Yeah, did. Okay, let's do it. Boom. And so, but then of course, what are we immediately doing? It's the next ball. We're judging that ball.
Mm.
Oh, it wasn't a perfect shot. That didn't work. No, you're dead wrong. Because what happened on the previous one? Well, the ball went right. Why did it go right? The club face was open. Okay. What did you want to do? I wanted to shut the face. So something that I always ask, and I always tell parents, you should think this same way too. If you overdo the correction, what could possibly be happening? What could possibly happen? Well, the ball would go left now. Okay. Well, the ball just went left, 30 yards left. So that means your child was actually trying to do the right thing. They just overdid the correction. So you're not, don't slap them on the wrist. Go like, yes, that's it. Right, right, right. Now something in between. Right? John Dunnigan calls that Goldilocks. Well, a lot of us call it Goldilocks,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, you now know the
And
parameters that you're working within. You have
bingo.
some structure put back into your total. I don't know what the hell's going on. Okay, now we got here's the two extremes. Somewhere in here, we got to work it backwards.
And it's like I sometimes I'll use the joke or the analogy of, well, you hit that first ball to Canada, now you just hit one to Mexico. So somewhere in between is Oklahoma. Let's give it a shot. Right? And it's like stuff like that. And just constantly getting their brain to work. And something that I say a lot to new students is like, because you could read on their face, it's like, hey, what do you think happened there? So immediately they're going like, what's the right answer? What does he want me to say?
Yes, very
Right.
much so.
And I tell them, let me tell you something. Is this school? No. This is a golf course. This is a range. This is a practice area. When I ask you, what do you think happened there? Or when I ask you a question, I really want to know what you're thinking. And when you say, I don't know, I want you to say it because you're saying, I really don't know. Not, I don't know what the right answer is. So I'm going to say, I don't know.
We were, everybody, we're back from technical challenge, and I'm tech challenge as it is. So it's times 100 multiplier. But little computer malfunction, but we are back. James, we were talking about kids and getting them to work through problem solving and the thought process involved in that.
Yeah. As I was getting at, the kids are always looking for what's that app to solve the issue, or even worse in the situation, it's they immediately turn to the parents to look for the answer. And one of the things about parents that they have to learn to do, and I'm making it sound really easy. I know this, and I talk to parents about this all the time. It's you have to let the kids make the decisions, and go through the process. I see a lot of parents out there when they're caddying for their kids in junior tournaments, for example, they're telling them what club to take, what shot to hit, and everything. Well, if whatever level your child eventually gets to, if they're lucky enough to get to a high level, it's they have to make their own decisions. So if you're making those decisions, what you're doing is you're actually delaying or stumping that really important ingredient that separates good players from other players. And so it's if they're always looking at you to make the decision, what are you going to do when you play in these tournaments where you're not allowed to be the caddy, where you're not even allowed to be out there on the course with them? What's going to happen is now they're going to be, it is a domino effect. There's a cascade effect, which is now they're out there making their own decisions and they're lost. They're going to be like, oh my God, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So now that's the moment when suddenly they're making their own decisions as opposed to preparing them to get to that moment. And now what happens is, for the most part, they're making poor decisions, or they're just not ready for the moment. Well, what are you going to do as the parent afterwards? You're going to see that your child didn't do well score wise. And now you're the one that's going to be telling them, what did you do wrong? Why'd you do this? That was stupid, blah, 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 blah. Right. Well, the reason why it was stupid was because you weren't there making the decision. That's why it was stupid. Right. And so it's not that you're stupid or the child is stupid. It's that dynamic was missing. So what did you expect your child to do?
Mm.
It's inevitably they're going to fail. And so just educating the parents about that as well as the child, it's make your own decisions. And so when you're caddying for your 7-year-old at a US kids golf tournament and your child says they want to hit a hybrid from the thick rough, let them hit the hybrid. Right? And you know what? Guess what? You're in a no-lose situation. If they manage to hit that shot out, You've got a moment to celebrate, high five each other. The kids, now their confidence is skyrocketing. Oh, look at what I can do. You're having this wonderful moment. And if it doesn't work out, well, now you have a learning moment. And when I say learning moment, not right then. Right then is the moment where your child's going like, what the hell just happened? Oh my God, my score is gonna be horrible. I'm terrible. I had a chance to par this hole. Now I'm gonna blah, 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 blah. Right? It's steamrolling.
Mm-hmm.
So your job as the caddy, like a pro caddy would do to their player, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Let's go. The ball's right there. Let's do it again. What do you want to do? Right? You're showing them it's okay. It's done. It's over with. Let's move on. What do we want to do here? And later on, when you're maybe over a hamburger or something, you might discuss it and say like, well, if you and again, going back to what I was saying earlier, if you had that moment, if you had to do that again, would you do the same thing, or do you think you would do something different? You know what? Yeah, I probably would have taken a 9-iron and just hacked it out, and then I would have had a pitching wedge into the green. I could have two putted or whatever, or made the putt. Yeah, okay, good. All right, great. But even then, it's lunch or whatever you're doing afterwards. That's not the bitch session. That's not, you know what you did wrong today. No. It should be, did you have fun? I know it's very textbook, like, oh, say all, but it really does make a huge difference. Like, hey, did you have fun today? Do you think you played all right? Good. All right. What do you want to eat? You hungry? I'm starving. What do you want to get? Cool. All right. And then, you want to get pizza? Cool. And how about some ice cream afterwards? I could use some ice cream. It's so hot today. All right, go. You're going like, yeah. Hey, that drive you hit on, one? Oh man, you think you were nervous? I was more nervous than you. Woo! And just going, and what happens is your kid sees, you know what? This was a fun moment with mom or dad or both of you, not, oh my goodness, I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to get yelled at for not cleaning my room. I'm going to get yelled at for not taking the garbage out, for not doing my homework. Now I'm going to get yelled at for my golf. There's nothing good. And so that's so important to lay the foundation. And like I said, it's easier said than done. But, and here we are talking about the parents, but I also turn around and I talk to the children too. And I say, what do you think is the most important, precious thing in your parents' life? What do you think is the one thing they love more than anything else? Well, it's you. And you know what's the worst feeling a parent can have in the world? It's helplessness, that they can't help you. So sometimes it gets to us as a parent where we start telling you what to do because we are trying so hard to help you. Believe me, in that moment when you're standing there and you're not playing well and you're upset and everything, nobody else in the world but your parents wants to run out there, hold you and hug you and make you feel better. Your dad, your mom wants to take that 7-iron out of your hand and say, honey, don't worry about it. You go there in the shade, get some water. I'll hit the shot for you. But we can't do that. And let me tell you something. That is the most helpless feeling in the world, to not be able to help your child. And so that dynamic both ways, it's like if both sides understand that, yeah, it's not going to be perfect. There are going to be moments where there's going to be clashes. But in the end, if both sides understand later on, when under cooler heads, like we say, that, yeah, okay, things are okay. Next, let's go on. Let's get something to eat and we'll work it out. Right? That's the environment that you're trying to set for them. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit here, but again, the point of let the child make their decisions. I'll always say to the child, when you go out and play, when you go out and practice, who's telling you what to do? And sometimes they'll say like dad, mom, you. It's like, nope, it's you. And when you're out on that golf course, who's telling you what to do? It's you. So you have to get used to telling yourself what to do. Doesn't have to be perfect English, doesn't have to be perfect grammar, but you have to get in the habit of telling yourself what to do. And, I've used the example where I've had 12 kids in a room and I gave them one little piece of paper about that big, like a fortune cookie. And it's a very simple sentence. And I give it to each one, a different one on each one. I give it to them. I said, all right, memorize that piece of paper. And of course, the kids are all going like, is everyone got it? Yeah, I got it. All right. Each one of you is going to stand up one at a time and repeat what that piece of paper said. And it was 11 out of 12 kids were like, It was oh wait, can I start again? It said we no, I mean it was right.
Mm.
Very simple phrase. Okay, now what you're going to do, here's another piece of paper. You're going to memorize this, but this one, what you're going to do is you're going to find some space. If you're afraid to hear yourself, you're self-conscious about your voice, you are going to vocalize it. You are going to be like, you're going to say, Pete's a great interviewer. Pete's a great interviewer. Pete's a great interviewer. Pete's a great interviewer. Okay, now everyone's going to come back. Let's get it. You got 12 out of 12 who said it correctly. And so it's not that you have to say things out loud, but when you're trying to tell yourself what to do, can you hear yourself? Can you think those things? Can you say those things? When you look at the players, why do you always hear them talking to their caddies? Why are the caddies always talking to them? They're verbalizing. They're clarifying. Sometimes you see videos of Tiger and his lips are moving. What do you think he's got chapped lips? No, he's talking to himself. It's this is what I want to do. And
it's much stronger. I had a friend who was a heavyweight full contact karate champion in North America. And so I can't remember, I think it was 6th Dan in karate and 5th Dan in jiu-jitsu. And he was a power lifter, a world-long driver. I mean, John was 6'3" or 4", 275 pounds, but as light on his feet as you could possibly get. It was just like, you look at him like, how is this even possible? This isn't even fair. But he was the one when I was playing, I met him towards the end of my career, that said, if you verbalize it to yourself, you don't have to say it out loud so everybody in the golf course can hear you, but if you verbalize it where you're even just whispering it to yourself, then it's exponentially more powerful than just saying it to yourself inside your head. Because now you're externalizing, internalizing, and now you've got both, and it allows you to be more mentally committed, that the intent is more clearly defined, and it's much easier when that happens. As you said, the caddy, the player, they're always talking, so that they're defining what they're going to do, and then they're going to commit to it. And everybody knows, you see golfers at the end of the round, what happened on that shot on 7? Well, I didn't fully commit. Okay, they didn't talk through it enough, or whatever the reason, but they didn't. But to your point, I used to do that. I could not believe how subtle of a thing to do that made a dramatic difference in the ability to perform.
It's funny. The two examples I'd give you is one is demonstrating to students. And why is it, for me personally at least, whenever I demonstrate to a student, I mean, I look like I could beat Tiger Woods. I'm holding out from 40 or whatever it is. And I realized it's because what I'm doing is verbalizing. I'm describing to the students what I'm trying to do, and it's just making it clear. And then I turn around and hit the ball. And it's like, well, why don't I just do that when I play, for example? And recently we had a US Open qualifier, and I caddied for one of my students who's 13. And so we went out there, and he's the 1%. This kid, it's since the age of 6, 7 years old, he would send me videos of him practicing. And not just that, but the great thing is he would verbalize. Like in the video, you would hear him say, first thing I'm going to do, and he's basically repeating what we were doing in the lessons. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and chip this ball over the foam noodle and have it land in the basket. If it's short, that's okay. If it's long, I have to, and it's like, that's what he would do all the time. And so he was playing in the round, and I was his caddy, and then all of a sudden I'd hear him talk. And the first 5 holes, I couldn't figure out who he was talking to, because I thought he was talking to me. And there was one point, I think it was the second hole, where he's standing over the putt and he goes, "What do you see?" So I was standing there. So I walked into his putt. And as I walked in, I saw that he was kind of starting to set up into the ball. So, of course, that's illegal. So all of a sudden, I jump out of the way. And then he's kind of settling and he putts the ball. And I'm going, he wasn't asking me, what do I see? He's talking to himself. What do you see? Right. And it's funny. One of the rules officials came over to me and says, "I just wanted to remind you, you can't be." I said, "Oh, I know." And I told him the same story. He's laughing in the car. He's like, I said, "Did you see me almost do like a 360 off this?" Like, yeah. And I said, "Yeah." And then he would be walking up the fairway and he would be talking, and I'd be about 15, 20 yards behind him with the bag, because I'm an old guy. And he's walking up the hill and I hear him talking, and I'm going, is he talking to me? Who's he talking to? And that was the funny thing is I realized half the time he's talking to me, half the time he's talking to himself. And And I told him that. I said, listen, if you're talking to me, say, hey, James. And that way I'll know and stuff. And so that's how we worked it out on, I think it was the fifth hole.
God, I would have to imagine that most people, regardless of skill level, beginner, kid, junior, college, pro, tour pro, that if they did that, the part of the mind that is occupied while that's happening is so focused on talking to yourself and walking you through a situation that the intent, number one, is very clear of what you're going to do, but it does not allow you to get into the negative pole. You're obviously going to stay in the positive pole of the mental framework that you're in. It will lend itself to be allow you to drift more into the negative side of that pole. So
Yes.
at least if you're not hitting it good, because you can't control that, we all know that. That's widely, I would think, accepted. You're not going to hit it the way you want to every day, but at least you're playing checkers instead of just chess. That you're maneuvering your way around a golf course. You're strategizing to yourself. Here's what I'm going to do. And from all the research that I've seen or read or heard in lectures, the best way to develop confidence, the number one thing to do is to actually do what you tell yourself you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Duh.
going to, at the most basic level, I'm going to clean my room and then actually do it.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to clean my office if you're an adult, or I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock and I'm going to start working out. If you do that every day and you go through the hardship and I call it climbing the mountain, then at the end of 90 days or however long you're going to do it, it's going to be very difficult, but you're going to have a hell of a self accomplishment, and you're going to be a hell of a lot more confident because you accomplished something difficult.
Yeah.
That would be a difficult thing for people to talk to themselves. They're going to feel embarrassed. They're going to worry about what other people think. Obviously, as a young kid, he doesn't give a shit. He's doing what either you told him or he learned somehow to say, this works. I'm going to continue to do it.
And
And if more people would do that, then I think their advancement would go much more efficiently.
yeah, I mean, there's a great video that came out a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the PGA Tour or the DP Tour put out a video, and it was Hao Tung Lee with his talking with his caddy whether to hit a 4 or 5 iron and stuff. And they figured out that if he hits a 4 because he's hitting on an uphill slope, it'll work out like a 5. And so, okay, they made the decision. But the best thing about the video is the very end, and I'll forward it to you. It's he's setting up over the ball, and he says like a 5-year-old, he goes like high right fade, and then he swings, and he hits the high right fade, hits it to 15 feet or whatever it is, and it's like here you are, you got one of the best players in the world standing over a ball like a beginner or whatever, and he's actually saying it out loud, like hi, like don't forget this is what I'm doing.
Yeah,
And
it's not second guessing, not thought jumping into. How many amateurs,
right.
even better players, will be playing, and then I'm guilty of it. I only bring this example up because I've done it a number of times. I'll play for a week or two, 1 or 2 times a week, and I won't play for a month or 2 months, and then I'll go back to play, and of course I've got two thoughts in my head, and halfway in the backswing another thought jumps in, and
Yep.
you completely wreck your shot. Like, how many more people would benefit from doing something like that? So there's one thought.
It's I think that's why that video of DJ talking about don't forget to hit a fade, and most important, I mean, as funny as that sounds, that really is something that you you need to be telling yourself, don't forget to hit the fade.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, and I know with this kid, it's a lot of times I get parents as well as other kids like, well, how did he get to be this good? And it's because, like I said, he does the things that the 1% does. He's not afraid to hear his voice. He's not afraid to say things out loud. He doesn't get self-conscious about things like that. But was he like that when he was 7? No, he was shy like everyone else, but he was willing to do the work. Right. And so he got used to doing it. So it wouldn't surprise, I haven't even asked this, it wouldn't surprise me if I ask him, did you know you were talking out loud half the time? He might even say like, oh, I didn't even realize it.
What I was never a big Tony Robbins follower because you were about the same age when we were young in middle school, high school. He was coming out and he was everywhere. He had infomercials, and I'm like, I don't need some guy telling me how to get pumped up. I was
Right.
big into basketball then and had just gotten into golf. But then he was on Tim Ferriss, and I think he was on Rogue. He was on all the podcasts, and I heard a couple, and I'm like, well, let me then that documentary came out with him. I'm Not Your Guru. And I said, well, he's everywhere. He's got to be pretty good. He's been around for 30 plus years. So I watched it. And the one glaring moment that I remember from that documentary was And I'd like to get your opinion on this as it relates to kids, because it's so early in their development, but it really with adults as well. So he asked this one, I think one guy, might have been a girl. Um, so I'm going to ask you two questions, because your belief system develops from a very young age, whether you realize it or not. It's being developed, and
Right.
it will form the framework for how you do and everything the rest of your life and your perspective on the world. So the first question was, of your parents, whose attention did you seek more? And he said, everybody knows that answer, whether they know it or not, within the first 1 to 3 seconds of being asked. He said, now the second question is, who or what did you have to do or become to get that attention? And usually when people sort that out, and that might take a little longer, they go, holy shit. I know I was one of them. I'd always tried to be perfect. And when you're playing golf for a living, that's a bad, bad thing to have as your beacon. And when I stopped playing, I was so burned out. I was so sick of golf. I knew something was wrong. I didn't know what. And then when I saw that, it like hit me like a giant waterfall. Like,
Yep.
oh my God. But the question is, do you see that with some of the kids? And or I know and not to pigeonhole you as just juniors, you teach every level, adults, advanced, high level amateurs, advanced, like we said, touring pros. Do you see that when you talk to them, and you get kids to open up, as we discussed earlier? You get the parent, you talk to them about it and explain things to them, educate them. Do you see any of that? And if so, how do you navigate through those
Oh
waters?
yeah.
Because they're going to be a little choppy.
Yeah, sure. Especially with kids, younger kids, it's when you ask them a question, where do their eyes immediately shoot to?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's like, hey, you know what? Wh- wh- when you, what's your favorite club in the bag? They go like that. It's like you can't even answer what your favorite club is you have to ask for permission. And so, and that's probably one of those few moments when I'll be like, oh, I didn't ask your mom, I didn't ask your dad, I asked you. Right. And sometimes they'll look away. And as they look away, or like you can almost hear the parent starting to open their mouth to answer. And I'll just be like this with my hand and just like that. And just kind of, hey, I want to hear you and stuff. And now in that moment where I go like this, especially to a new student, the parents might be like, well, who the hell is he to do that? What's this? Right. So again, going back to bridging that gap, and just after the answer comes out, I'll say, well, I just wanted to make sure she knew that she could answer me. All right. And so, and then I'll even turn around and like, so what do you think? And because that's a moment where the parent realizes, oh, he does respect my opinion, right? And so he goes, oh, I see what he's getting at. And sometimes you see the child answering one thing and then the parent answering something else, and it's like, oh, I thought you did like that. I thought you did like that. It's like, no, I don't like that. You like that, Dad, not
Mm-hmm.
me, right? But I've never seen that conversation happen adversarially. You always see the child smiling. No, Dad, you're the one that likes it, not me. And there's a big laugh and everything like that. And you could see that right there, even if they never ever come back, that's something that's planted, and hopefully it grows between the child and the parent. But yeah, you see that. And then as the kids get older, it's the same thing. So when you're asking them how they played or what they did, and it's are they bringing up an external person, right? So yeah, I was playing the other day, and I wasn't hitting so good for the first 5 holes, and then when my dad told me that, or my mom told me that, and it got better. Okay, so on the one hand, you hear somebody chimed in, and it was the dad or the mom or whoever it is, and it got better. So is that a sign that they have a good relationship? That mom or dad was just saying, "Oh, your head was a little tilted, so don't forget about that." Oh, thanks, mom, no problem, and then they're fine, right? Or is it one of those? Oh, for crying out loud! How many times do you have to be told that? So it's just say you start to dig a little bit deeper and find out about it. So that's one way, and also, I guess if the parent is there, who do they kind of start to look at? Who and one of the things I'm always looking at is when they hit a bad shot, what's their immediate reaction, right? So do they hit a bad shot and then just kind of like act normal and then, all right, let's get another ball or whatever? Or do they hit a bad shot and then just kind of look the other way? Do they hit a bad shot? And then there's this sort of like almost they they're looking at approval from the parents, or oh, is dad mom going to roll their eyes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do a lot of things in the programs where, because of course in the programs, who's the person's approval that they want the most? The coaches. So somebody does something, what do they look like Meerkat Village, all of a sudden their head comes up and they look at you, right? And sometimes they look at me and I'm looking right back at them like that with a smile, and I'd be like, yeah, I saw it, but they see the reaction as not, I saw it, how could you do that? They see the reaction as, it's like, it was kind of funny, wasn't it? Wasn't that funny that you did that? It's like, or what's the big deal? Don't worry about it. I saw it. Yeah, who cares? Big deal. What do you think you got to do on the next one? And just constantly training them that way, constantly training them. And I think for me, the proud coach is when I have these older high school kids and they come up to me and they say like, hey, how'd you play in the county championships? Boy, I noticed this was happening, but I realized that if I did this, it's probably going to be okay. Right. So I realized, yeah, if I just aim more right, then those big draws are going to be fine. So I just did that. And then I was fine the rest of the way. Right. So I was like, okay, job well done. It's not that I fixed their swing, so to speak. It's I got them to problem solve. I got them to realize that, oh, why don't I just do this? And so that shows that work over the years is it's working. It's working with that
Mm-hmm.
kid. And that's why maybe they are the 1%.
How do you work with providing structure and development and mechanical improvement, skill development, or swing technique improvement, yet still keeping it enjoyable for across the spectrum of the students that you're working with, especially because you not only do individuals, you do the pod system you put together, which I thought was great. Pod, for everybody out there listening might not know, it's group, where you're grouping kids or individuals into different groups, and you're working with groups as a whole instead of just one-on-one instruction. So when you have a situation like that, how do you work with providing, let's say, structure or technical development or skill development and enjoyment at the same time? Because it's like an abstract and it's like a engineer trying to work together on something.
Yeah, and I think what you're trying to do is there is sort of like, you can actually turn the technical aspect into gamification as well, not just the skills building. And I think the thing also to get across, especially to parents and coaches too, as well as the kids, it's while you're working on the technical stuff up to a certain age, let's say 11, 12 years old, that having a technically proficient swing is not the most important thing in the world. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason being is when you go through growth spurts, your muscles grow, you develop, suddenly you get stronger, you get bigger, you get faster, whatever the reason is. It's whatever you're working on is going to evolve, it's going to change. So if you're getting obsessive with a position in a swing for an 8-year-old, it's like you're opening yourself up for delayed development, because they're going to get that, then they're going to go through a growth spurt, and then what you were just working on trying to drill into your child
His
is not going
shot
to
is
work
gone.
anymore. And it's like, so now you got to go through this whole process again. And now, of course, if you don't know better, you're frustrated, you're angry, the child is discouraged. And now all of a sudden, Dad, I don't like golf anymore because it's too hard. And so one of the things I've gotten across to parents over the years for younger kids is when they say like, well, do you think his wrist is a little bit too cupped at the top? And it's like, yeah, but he's not 15. And when he gets to be 12, 13 years old, we'll start to pay a little bit more attention to that. But if you notice when he comes down here, he actually is pretty good and stuff. Oh, can you fix the jumping? Well, we can fix the jumping, but it's like not for another 5 years when he starts lifting weights and trying to look good for the girls at the beach. It's like that's when we can pay attention to that. And so, but yeah, I think I'll give you a good example. One of the things I talk about with the kids is, what floor are you on in your penthouse, in your building, your apartment building? And what I get at is swing plane. So what I'll have the kids do is can you make the flattest possible swing you can? Make the club as low as you can, come inside as you can. Don't worry about hitting a good shot. It's like, just do flattest swing possible. And they swing. All right, so that's the first floor. Now, can you make one a little bit? What's the Ferris wheel? What's the penthouse? And then, they look like Jim Furyk or whatever it is. Okay, so that's the first floor. That's the penthouse. How many floors do you have in between? And I'd say for most people, they can come up with like 6, 7 planes, or they perceive it. Right. And so what'll happen is like, that was first floor. Can you show me second floor? Okay, good. Now can you show me third floor? Good. Can you show me fourth? And we work our way up, right? Tell me, keep going up with each ball until you feel like you've reached the penthouse. Okay, I'm at the penthouse. So that's whatever, 6, 7 floors. What floor do you think your swing is at? It's like, I think my swing is at 4. Okay, good. Can you do me a favor? So now, let's say it's a person whose swing is a little too flat. Can you swing to the 5th floor? Sure, okay. They've done it. So instead of really focusing too much internally, or maybe they're going like, you're talking to them too much like an adult. Yeah, can you kind of get your shoulder to be a little bit more internally rotated? Blah, 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 blah. No, it's like, well, you're at the 4th floor right now, like you said. Can you swing to the 5th floor? And your kids are wonderful. They'll be able to figure it out. I think the other thing they start to notice is, remember I said, I don't care how you hit it. Let's just do it. They get to a certain point where it's like topped chunk. Oh, I flushed that one. Oh, I flushed that one. Okay. Hey, by the way, Pete, did you happen to notice what floors you suddenly were hitting it pretty good? Yeah, it felt like when I was on the 3rd floor and the 4th floor, I hit it pretty good. Oh, okay. So what you're also telling the child is you don't have to be on the 4th floor every time. You can be on the 3rd floor. You can be on the 4th floor. They're both going to be fine for you. So not that now they're not feeling like they have to be absolutely picture perfect with
They
their,
can be in a window, so they can have a
yeah,
window of
always
plus and
windows and
minus.
ranges versus what's ideal. Right. So that's an example of one thing that I would do with the kids.
Are you familiar with Chris Voss?
Oh
He's
yeah.
gone kind of to me. I know that everybody's going to relate him to negotiation because he was FBI's chief terrorist negotiator. But
Write
to
things
me,
down.
yes, but to me, it sounds like one thing that you're doing that is extremely successful, utilizing his method, is you're getting the student, junior, adult, advanced player to you're giving them a little bit of information or asking them a question and letting them figure it out so that they get to that point where they say that's right.
Yes.
You're letting them find it out. So it's they're taking it in more, they're utilizing it more, they're absorbing it more instead of you saying, like you said, get your left shoulder lower, do this or that. Hey, can you get your hand? What floor does this work best for you?
Yeah.
And then they're internalizing. Let me think. Okay, here. No, right here was okay.
Yep.
Show me another one of those. And so you're getting them to show you what you want them to do.
Yeah.
But they're thinking, I'm going to show him, and they're making the adjustments. So it's the education is greater, the implementation is more efficient, it's better, it's improved, and the
It
advancement is there.
it's very interactive, and also it's the old make it their idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they go away too, especially the ones that play a little bit more competitively, is they now can be on their own. And hey, how'd you play the other day? Or how'd it go? Yeah, I was on the range, I was warming up, and I was kind of like not hitting it a little bit. It's like, but you know what? Yeah, I felt like if I went up one more floor, I was better. Right. And I had one kid tell me that, and that came out of the blue. And I was like, oh my God, what do you mean you went up one? Oh, you know how we were doing the floors? I was like, yeah. But it was funny. It was like, oh, we haven't done that for like 2 years. Where did that come from? He was like, oh, I don't know. It just, it just popped in my head. It's like, hey, why don't you
What was
just go up
needed.
one more floor?
Hey, you put it in there again. We go back to the vitamins and nutrients. You put it in there on a regular basis versus needing medicine. If it was
Yep.
in there and it popped back in, it popped back in for a reason because it was needed.
Yep.
And your skill at being able to let people develop their skills in allowing these things to surface when needed is a superpower that you're not going to get. Not that and again, I used to get labeled as anti-science or anti-tech. I said, no, that's not it. But you can't rely on that because things like what you're doing, things like what most people should be doing with their students, that's not a technical thing that you can put on an app and
Right.
measure. In fact, we need to get away from that and let them, as you said, let them, the student, become the app. You solve it. You become your own AI.
Yeah.
I had a very good junior I worked with years ago. I worked with him for about 7 years. He's playing professionally now in South Africa. But the way I explained it to him, because he was very independent, he was very smart, exceptional talent. He was very artistic. He liked music. He liked art. He liked working the ball. He hit some of the. I don't know if I told him if he's listening. I'll tell him that the one shot he hit at Savannah Golf Club, he hit a 100-yard 4-iron that cut at least 50 yards onto the green with a 4-iron. I was pretty impressed with that one. But his dad was a CEO. His dad was an extremely structured person. Complete opposites. He's more like his mom. And finally I told him one day, I said, look, when he was at college, I said, when you go to play, you are the CEO of your own corporation. We all work for you. So get used to making decisions now, because you're going to make these decisions. When you go on the road, you're going to be 1,000 miles away from all of us, from me,
Yeah.
5,000 or 10,000, whatever, many thousand. You're going to be the one to make these decisions. So you might as well start making them now, because you are the CEO of this company, regardless of your dad's success or me as your coach or your mom helping you out or whatever you need. You are the boss, and you need to make the decisions. And there is a learning curve with that here. Oh shit, what if I make the wrong decision? Oh shit, what if I do it? Like you said, you explained that very well. It's like, yeah, that's what you got to learn how to do, because that's just another level that you're going to have to experience at every pro golfer. Well, I mean, there's the proteges that they come out and they have their whole management team because they're the best in the amateur ranks and they're getting signed, so they have a whole team for that. But for most players that go to another level, junior goes to college, mom and dad aren't there anymore, you're not there anymore. They might have their coach, but their coach is going to say, "Go figure it out.
Yep.
Go figure out how to get to this school of business or the math department. I'm not going to
Yeah.
take you by the hand. I got other kids to take care of." So that was how I explained it, and it clicked for him. He's like,
Yeah.
"Holy shit, you're right." And it was, I thought, I'm because like you, I'm thinking, this isn't working. How do I do something different that's going to get this to click for him? And that's what I came up with. He's like, "Wow, this is awesome. I'm the CEO." Yep. And then he was on his way.
Yeah. I
Nothing
agree.
I ever read in a book. I'm like, how the hell do I fix this
Yeah,
problem?
it's just and I think it's, again, you've ingrained that into yourself. Something happened along the way, like we talked about, like me going crazy, feeling like an octopus, but actually there was something in there, and it's that's long term. There's no way around that. There's no quick fix or band-aid for that. And it's, you just have to kind of go through that. And that's why it's like you were saying, it's like somebody hits a bad shot, that's a perfect learning experience. Like, what are you going to do on the next one? What are you going to do on the next one? And so that's multi-processing, in that, number one, the person's realizing I can solve problems on my own. Number two, it's not the end of the world if I hit a bad shot. Number three, it's all right, what are all of the things that I'm learning that I can put into this next decision? And all of this happens in 5 seconds. And just understanding that. But if as a parent you're constantly making decisions, that 5 seconds turns into 5 minutes, because they're too busy wondering, what's dad going to think, what's mom going to think if I make the wrong choice here.
Right.
Right. I think that's part of the reason why some of these kids are so slow in the tournaments, is they're not thinking about the shot. They're thinking about, what if I make a mistake here? What if I do something wrong? And what would someone have told me to do if they were here? Versus, this is what I feel like doing. And I think one of the things I get across in the environment that I set the atmosphere for juniors, for example, is golf is not a game of success. Golf is designed for you to fail, right? If it was meant for you to success, there'd be no such thing as bunkers. Fairways would be 500 yards wide and dead straight. Holes would be the size of basketball nets or something. It's like, there's a reason why golf course architects, the most evil people in the world, figure out how far people hit their driver and then put fairway bunkers there. There's a reason why they do that and stuff. And so it's, if you can understand failure management, that's what success is in the game. It's hitting a shot, accepting the results, and just, all right, what do I do on the next one? What do I do on the next one? And go from there. And I mean, I think every coach, we all have those good juniors. And I'm sure every coach can think about those handful of juniors that, man, how good could she or he have been if only they could have accepted that they're human, that they're imperfect. Yeah, I remember 25 years ago teaching this one girl who was absolutely, I mean, we're talking 25 years ago, and she was about 5'3", and she could hit 7-irons, 153, 160 carry. She was martial arts, everything. And it was like she was just phenomenally strong. But if the ball wasn't a 2-yard draw or less, I hit a bad shot.
Wow.
right? And here's a girl who she went out, you would watch her for 5 holes, she'd play 3 holes, she'd be one under par or even par. You'd be like, oh my God, this girl's amazing. She'll hit her drive on the 4th hole into the rough or under a tree. Boom. That was it. That's the
That
end
was
of the
it.
day.
There was a guy here on Hilton Head. He was going back to the 80s and even the 90s. He was a legendary, but he was manic depressive. And he would Palmetto Dunes on the Trent Jones course, the 8th hole parallels Highway 278, so it's the boulevard, and there's a whole row of trees. Now you can see all the cars going by, but the 8th hole from the back tees is about 205, and he would stand up there with a 5 wood and launch them over the road and slice them back onto the green just to do it. But why I bring that up is he's very similar to that girl, to where he shot 67, 69 one day at a local not a tournament, a course. And he was in the golf shop the next day sanding. This was the EI-70. Remember the green EI-70 shafts? He took emery paper and he filed all the green off of his shaft. He didn't miss a fairway, and he changed the shafts in all his irons. And I said, Ronnie, what are you doing? He said, I didn't like looking down at the green on my shaft, and I didn't like the way that 4-iron was on 15. So I didn't like that feel. I'm changing all the shafts. You just shot 902 rounds back to back, and you're changing everything. But that's what he was like.
Yep.
It was crazy. And now that's he was admitted manic depressive, so he had a chemical imbalance there. But I'm not saying that young girl was, but I've seen that, and
Yep.
it just you can't even comprehend it sometimes. That I would have to imagine that it was a lot of, if she stayed with golf, it was a lot of work
Yeah.
to get her mind accepting, and that she would feel so much better in general, not
But
just in her game.
yeah, and I think what's nice about it is I think it was just relegated to golf, because I still follow her to this day. She has a beautiful family, and she's very successful at what she does. And it's like, it seems like everything else she does, maybe that was her learning experience, that
Mm.
through golf she realized I don't have to be perfect and stuff. And she still plays golf with her family, and it's a lot of fun for her, and it's good to see. And I think just in that moment, as a 15-year-old, an impressionable 15-year-old, she thought she had to be perfect. And I don't think she has any regrets. I think she just saw it as like, oh, I realize now I don't have to be that way.
Yeah, one question I got to ask you as our time's winding down, especially for girls, for younger girls, and it seems that especially the Asian culture, and I think I'm fairly certain that most people I talk to say it's a cultural thing, but the Asian girls are obviously dominating LPGA, and even now some the some of the girls from Northern Europe, Norway, Sweden, Annika obviously, and some of the other ones. But you don't see it as much in the boys' side or in the men's side. Boys and men's, we'll use both. Do you see, as you work with kids from all different backgrounds, and especially in New York, and all different cultures, do you have a theory on why that is?
Yeah, I think internationally part of it is just because, like, we'll use Korea as an example. The men have to do required military service.
Mm.
Sung Young No is a perfect example. Here's a young player that was doing really well, and then he had to do his 2 years of service, and then he came back afterwards, and he's still playing well, but I think he's maybe Corn Ferry Tour kind of stuff. So that is a big hump that they have to play. I think that might be one of the reasons why, when you see some of these players, they might be Korean, but they're all of a sudden their nationality is switched to, let's say, New Zealand or something, Australia or something like that, right? So they're changing their nationality so they don't have to do the 2 year service. Now in Korea, they've changed that now, where if you do something, I think like an example would be like if you win the gold medal in golf, for example, you don't have to do the service time. I know the baseball players, the Major League Baseball players, are going through that as well. So, but that's one thing. But here in the United States, I know for Long Island, uh, the popularity of girls' sports is sky high here. Lacrosse, tennis, everything like that, soccer. One of the things that I noticed happening over the years is the girls now are much more athletic than the boys, and there's something going on there. Maybe it's because of the training. So, for like, we do these cyclone warm-ups where they go through different hopping, skipping, and all these kind of things. And it's phenomenal to watch the girls, how coordinated they are at an age of like 8, 12,
Hmm.
somewhere in that area. They are highly skilled. And it's because they're like, oh, I do this in my soccer camp too, etc. The boys, I've noticed it's the other way around, where their coordination is delayed. And one thing, again, I'm wondering if other coaches would notice this. I can't remember a single instance where I heard a girl talking about, whether it's to me or to their friends, video games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or watching something online constantly. But I'll hear constantly the boys when they're doing something, they're talking about some video game, something, whether it was like everything from Fortnite to whatever, and all of these things. It's like, well, do you play any sports? No, not really. What do you do? I just sit at home, and it's like it's sort of changed now. So I think that's a contributing factor as to why I'm noticing, for instance, our developmental program for the girls is doing very well, but we don't get as many boys. Like our one of the local high school teams here is doing really well because they have a bunch of seventh and eighth graders on their team that are basically going to be the focus of the team for the next 4 years. And they have another couple of sixth graders who next year will be seventh graders trying out for the team from the middle school. But the coach asked me, is there anyone coming behind that? And I said, I can't think of a single boy who, at least in our program, who is even showing an inkling of like, I really want to play golf. I love golf. I want to play golf. They're like, yeah, I like golf. I like this. I like that. Now, maybe that's incumbent on us to kind of create some sort of spark that gets the interest going. But it's almost like there's this, you can see this drop off. But at the same time, there's a bunch of girls who are like, I really like golf. I really like lacrosse. I really like, and it's more a case of the struggle that they're going through is that they can't decide which one they like better, which is fine. They're 10. It's like they don't have to make a choice now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I tell the parents, it's like, we really want to focus on, no, don't you dare do that. It's like, believe me, it's not about my feelings. If when they're the age of 13, 14, whatever, they say to me, hey, she's decided to play lacrosse, play lacrosse. I'll be your
Yeah.
biggest fan. Tell me when you're playing. Tell me how your games go. I don't care. That's fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad that the golf helped you in terms of your development as a human being, as a person. So, but getting back to your question, I think the women are definitely much more athletically inclined. I think because of over the years, you could see the benefits of the last 20 years. There's been more women's sports. I know one of the things that happened in the old days with Koreans is that golf was the only thing the girls could do. They weren't encouraged to play other sports, right? Because and so that's an important thing. It was either golf or go to school.
No options. Not a whole closet full of clothes. You got
Yeah,
this shirt or this shirt, these
yeah,
shorts or these shorts, and the advancement because they have advanced to basically dominate the women's tour in particular. Is that, do you think that's a cultural thing where they're, because it seems like that they get to a domination point sometime in their 20s and then they realize they don't have a overbearing father, because my girlfriend's half Korean and I obviously did martial arts. I know somewhat about the Asian culture that's very male dominated.
yes,
And if dad says you're going to do this, you're going to do this. But it seems like when they have that a very strong foundation of work ethic because they're more or less being forced to do it, or they have limited options. But then once they have the success, and it could be, they want to become mothers and they're getting it to a certain age that's what their focus becomes. But it seems like as they get further away from that, you have to do this, or here's your only choices. Now they have success. Now that opens up a whole bunch of choices and options that they can go do other things. And they seem to maybe segue out of golf
yes.
and go on and live a life where they're making the decisions, as we've been talking about this the whole time, that it's like they have more freedom to do what they want to do.
Yes, I think especially in the Asian culture, it's once you make a name for yourself, you can bank off of your name, and I mean that in a positive way. And so it's it's kind of like go to an Ivy League school, get a degree, and then you'll be successful the rest of your life. Well, it's like go and be a professional golfer and be successful, and you'll be success. You'll whatever you decide to do,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be fine. And whether they end up leaving the tour due to injury or burnout, or just they've achieved their success and now they can do what they really want to do, that's fine. And I think it's that kind of goes with, yeah, the culture. I think what you also see is when you see the Europeans, like the Swedes, right, the Swedish, the Denmark, and the Danes, versus and those coming from Spain, Central America, and the ones you come from Asia, the culture is different. So I think what you see, and again, this is just my opinion. I could be 100% dead wrong. It's like with Asian culture, it's like do the drills, 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 constant drilling it into the system. Again, the land is very limited. Who knows? Maybe not. But again, if you look at places like Sweden, it's the same thing. It's a small country.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of it is more about the developmental process. And so, again, this is one of those things I could be dead wrong. It'd be interesting to look on the LPGA tour and see how many women are still on the tour or play professionally at some level that are over the age of 35,
Hmm.
right? And see how it fits culturally versus under the age of 35 or even under the age of 30.
Right. Very interesting. It's a whole Pandora's box. I know Brando Chambly's touched on it a number of times. I believe his theory is that it's culture related.
Yes.
But I think that it's definitely something that it warrants some more investigation. Not
Yeah.
as a bad thing, just like, hey, how can we in the U.S. Uh, bring in James and other people who work with this group of age group? How can we advance our programs, junior, both boys and girls, to a level that's going to allow both to compete more on the biggest stages?
And I can tell you culturally, one of the things that happens to me is, in case people didn't notice, I'm not Italian, but it's when you, I'll have parents bring their kids that are, I'm talking about Asians, bring their kids because they know I'm not like that. That I'm a little bit more free. Like they want their kids to have a life. They want their kids to enjoy things.
Hmm.
I've also had parents not bring their kids to me for the exact same reason. You're not strict enough. And it's like, well, you know what? I'm not going to change my system, my approach to fit you, right? And I don't mean that in an egotistical way. It's just, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go home at night and be unhappy with the fact that I had to be a taskmaster to somebody, right? While the other three kids that are there, they had the time of their lives. So I'm not going to do that. And that's something that's definitely been something that I've experienced. I've also had non-Asian parents bring their kids because they thought they were going to get a stricter culture for their kids, just simply because, well, we hear that, you know, like Asians are like much stricter with their kids, so we really want him to get some discipline. And so, but then again, you know what? Maybe what I think is a little bit more open and free is still strict compared to
What they're
other
coming from.
programs that are
Yeah.
around. So who knows, right? Until they experience it.
Very interesting stuff. I mean, we covered a lot, and I feel like we hardly even scratched the surface of some of the stuff you do. But I know I've run up against the time wall. You were more than gracious enough to give me multiple hours. Um, I hope a lot of people reach out to you, or at least hear this, and they say, "Holy shit, I got a junior. We're in uh, North Texas, but I heard you on the show, or I looked at your work, and can I ask you a question? At
Yeah,
least, you know,
absolutely.
those are some things like that. So if someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to follow you, reach you, contact you, etc.?
They can email me at JH, my initials, JH golf instruction at Gmail. They can also reach out to me through either Facebook Messenger or Instagram Messenger. Uh, my both of them are at James Hong Golf. Right, Instagram's probably going to be easier for most people, so you could just private. I get private messages all the time from parents uh, asking me questions, or even locally, just like what's good for lessons or clubs. Yeah, they'll ask me like what's a good club to get for my kids. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, feel free to shoot me a question anytime.
Awesome, James. It's been great. Hang out for just a minute, everybody. Thanks for checking us out again. We will see you all next time.